Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us. Thank you very much for joining this workshop organized in the framework of the transport sector discussions that we are having. We are really pleased. I'm speaking very slowly because we are expecting a few people to join. They are in the process, so that's the reason why I'm going so slowly. Well, Hien Dong in the car, you have to wait a bit because there is nothing to say yet. So let me just make the introductions. I'm really happy to have today. We have today with us Joana Coronacion, otherwise known as Nice in all meanings. She is the Deputy General Secretary of Central in the Philippines. And she has a long experience of organizing in the youth sector, in the fast food sector. And today she joins us very late in the evening. So thanks again, Nice, for that. She joins us to discuss really the very fascinating case of the union in the Philippines in trying to transform its struggle from mere resistance to the government program to actually a real alternative in a very strong conversation with the workers and with the union. And I'm very happy to have Nice there, especially because she's also a trainer of the GLU Online Academy, and we're really proud to have her in our team. And there are many trainers here, so really great to see you all. So Nice, usually what we do is we would really love to hear from you some key highlights of this case study that you have prepared for us in collaboration with your comrades in the union. And then we open up for discussions. To everybody joining, please either write your questions or raise your hand so after Nice is presenting, but really make sure that it's connected to the case study. Please avoid general questions because we want to go deeper into this initiative and we don't want general questions. So thank you very much again, and Nice, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Elvira. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, comrades. Like what Elvira said, I'm Nice Coronacion. I am riding a jeepney before. I am still trying to ride now, even though there's a shift in the Philippines. If you haven't been in the Philippines, you can Google right now what is jeepney. But if you've been in the Philippines, you have tried to ride in it, then you have an experience. What is this case study about? Maybe you have seen the jeepney driver worker who drove you from point to point, and it's good to feel that I also have comrades in the Philippines here. So we are on the same timeline of the world, that it's 9 p.m. Brother Brian and Brother Benjamin and my fellow GC like Nicolas. Hello everyone. Yeah. So for now, I'll ask everyone first to mute themselves so I can have like a very short introduction on our contribution to the future is public course and our case study. Mobility is one of the most important facets of life. The ability to move people and things quickly, efficiently, and safely is an essential social service, and this is indispensable requirement for economic prosperity. To neglect public transportation is to deny millions of people the right to a safe and dignified life. It is also a structural disadvantage that stunts economic development. Here in the Philippines, our government today is faced with a monumental task of providing the modern transportation infrastructure required by the Filipino people. This is a social question that requires the serious and active participation of government, transport workers, and commuters. Maybe you have seen in the video that National Confederation of Transport Workers Union, when the before of the administration of President Duterte in 2016, had implemented or pushed for the jeepney modernization program. Of course, there are many debates, like jeepney is part of the cultural heritage of the Filipino people, and it should not be taken away from us. But during that time, our union, NCTU, already said that we should not right away reject modernization, because during that time there's also discussion from our union on what is just transition, and how do they see their future, and how do they see they will contribute to the uh, transformation of public transportation in the Philippines. So this is like discussion. So we didn't say that no to jeepney phase out right away, but the our union discussed that this, since this will be a long process, uh, there should be a moratorium of the consolidation of workers, because most of the jeepney workers in the Philippines, including the operators, are part of the informal economy. So they don't have their regular wages. The form of the system of their earning is boundary system. If you don't own the jeepney, so if you are driving on it, you will need to ride the jeepney as a worker for at least 12 to 16 hours. And then you need to give the owner of that jeepney at least 700 pesos a day, or about right now $14, if the conversion is $1 is to 50 pesos. So for that 12 hours to 16 hours work, you need to surrender that 14 dollars. But the reality is for that long working hours, they don't have social security, they don't have social benefits, and since they are the one providing their own gasoline to or diesel for the jeepney, it costs a lot. So maybe they will just save $10 for that 16-hour work. So if we remove all the expenses, so that's the current that's the situation before. So our union, since we are pushing informalization of work to formal labor, sees this as an opportunity, because if the workers consolidate as a cooperative, then there will be opportunity for workers to manage their own operations. And that time, they are also thinking that it will be an opportunity for drivers to have 8-hour work, overtime pay, social costs. But there are many public debates. And this is not done in a snap of a finger. It took us more than 5 years. I will tell you, before 2016, NCTU's membership is 27,000. So many membership of drivers operators across the country. But in the case study, you've seen that we have consolidated 4,623 members. But the good thing about that, before, those 27,000 are not all 100% dues paying members to the union. But through the consolidation, we managed to sustain it more. So they are more financially sustainable, but they've undergone series of training, series of campaigns to make sure it will happen. But I bet you, even the current program of the government have challenges, and even the current operations of our union through cooperatives have its own challenges, because before, they are very used in having the boundary system, like in very individualized, dealing with one worker to the operator or to the owner. And if we are in a collective, it's about routes and everything, about fare, about the race of gasoline. But now, because of the cooperatives, the worker and the operator join their forces together to deal on workers' rights issue, because they themselves are unionists. So it's so hard to prevent the right to freedom of association of the workers themselves. So many things have developed out of this case study. There are many debates out of this because there are also unions who are calling for jeepney phase out. I know to jeepney phase out, for example, it means that it should be a status quo. But of course, our union is not happy because modernization program should not be at the expense of the drivers and workers themselves. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that we are raising the critical consciousness of the workers on how this modernization can transform their lives and our public transportation as well. So those are like questions, concerns in this study. But the element I want to bring in it is that there were some critical victories for the transportation movement about this modernization because they managed to have the 5-year moratorium so that the union can prepare for consolidation, prepare their documents so that they can access the bank loans, demand that the government reduce the cost of the unit that they can buy, is the element of the workers collective or the unions in it, and its role in all the lobbying efforts, and its role in the campaign and the discussion uh, are the critical events of this case study that are also behind the scenes and the stories that we put up in that 7 minute video. I'm so excited to share. Many things are now in my mind running, but those are the things that I would like to share in the body for us to have like a sharing of discussions and questions and concerns in relation to this case study. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nice. And let's open up for questions about this very interesting case study, and in particular about, what were some of the internal tensions. It's not easy to come up with an alternative strategy such as this one. So it's open. Who would like to make the first question or comment in relation to this case study? I wouldn't have wanted a Filipino to be first, but I mean, why not? Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, Miss Nice. Thank you. Nice to see you again. Uh, uh, the case of the Philippine transport is very different from the rest of the case studies in the MOOC because they are actually private workers, but very informal, low-paying, no, self-employed, the drivers and the operators. And there is a transition to consolidate, to do the cooperative way of the transport sector, no? So my question is this: so are there attempts for big companies to maybe invade the transport sector? No, are the unions prepared or preparing in case some really big private companies try to invade the sector instead of the cooperatives? Thank you.
Yeah, Nice. Why don't you take that one while we collect a few more questions?
Yeah, you're right, Brian. There are instances being reported by our union and CTU in particular that there are moves from the private sector, not just about the unit, the new modernized unit that is more expensive, but it's also all about the routes. Meaning, if you are in a public transportation system, there will be a route plan. And if you are the cooperative, consolidated cooperative, before the bank will allow you to have the loan be granted so you can get the new modernized unit, you need to make sure that the Land Transportation and Regulatory Board already approve you the route plan. And it's also affirmed by the city. But the city council and government sometimes deals with private institutions who said that we can buy that route. So our push for our cooperative and even to the LTFRB that we need to make sure, since this is the government plan of modernizing, and this collective of drivers and operators already consolidated. Imagine, I'm an owner of the Jeep, but I subsume myself to the cooperative for the interest of everyone. So I need to make sure that our interests are protected. So what they are doing is to be with the council of meet the council of the city, not just in the national level, about route plan. So they engage locally, not just in the national policy level, to protect the interests of the co-ops for the route and not to allow the private companies' interest to take over. So in here, the mapping and the level of awareness of the union in the locality is very important. Because if it's more focused that, okay, our union and NCTU will do the work in the national, you'll concentrate there, then you forget that you have fights locally to defend. So that's what our union is doing right now, engage with the local municipality to secure the route plan is with the consolidated cooperative of jeepney drivers and operators.
Thanks very much. Nice. While we wait for any further question, is there any initiative to try and kind of address this issue of the routes at the legal level? That is to give priority to workers' cooperatives, that as a sort of a mandatory approach also by the local governments, because I can imagine that depending on where the local government stands, it may really prioritize the private sector instead of the cooperatives. And I know that Comrade Usi was raising his hand. Do you want to make the question, Comrade?
Yes, please. Yes, okay, so sorry. Good afternoon, Comrade. Where I am, it's a bit lousy or noisy out here. But my question has to do with a social protection issue. He raised an issue where he said that most of the workers who are part of the transport union are not under any social protection. I want to find out if the union has been able to address that issue of social protection, and if they have been able to do it, what are the strategies or what ways did they use to address those issues, so that some of us can also learn from that, because we also have a similar issue with what they also have. Most of the workers in the transport sector are private owned. We don't really have a public owned transport. Thank you.
Yeah. First, I answer Sister Elvira's question about if there are legal case right now about the routes. So far, the legal case is more focused on having a moratorium to stop the modernization program. It's now in the Supreme Court, since I've said that there are some groups who are also not for the phase out of jeepneys, but let us see what's the current updates there. So far, in relation to the routes, there's no as far as we know in our union, there's no legal action yet. But the legal aspect of the work is also critical. So every time there's a threat, our union already consult our legal counsel, so that before we reach the courts, we already prepared for lobbying and negotiation, and make sure that the workers are like confident to defend that what is theirs is theirs. So in relation to Brother Ebenezer's question on social protection, prior to the modernization program, before they consolidated, All workers in the Philippines are entitled to be covered by social protection through voluntary contribution. So you will register yourself as a voluntary contributor. But since the jeepney and drivers already form a cooperative, then the cooperative is the employer of the workers who are driving, who are doing, well, we have this called conductors, getting the payments of the riders who are also workers most of the time. So through the cooperative, they are also responsible to get to make sure that the drivers, all the workers of the co-ops have their social benefits. So this is like one of the beauty of the consolidation process, because the informality of work is transformed to formal labor, because if you are part of the formal labor, at least in our country, you are entitled to that social benefits. We have three key social benefits in terms of social security, of our pag-ibig in terms of housing, insurance, and our PhilHealth or Philippine Health insurance. So that's the process why they are covered through cooperatives.
Thanks very much, nice, and thanks, Nicola, for patiently waiting with a hand up. So please go ahead.
No, please, thank you, and glad to meet many of you once again. I have two questions. Can you hear me properly? Because I have
Yes,
a problem
all
with
good.
my.
Very clear.
Perfect. I have two questions. In the video lecture, Nice, you mentioned that women are actively part of the process, and I wonder if that's a result of a union strategy, or rather a momentum where gender issues were being debated, and how you actually work with that. Are there gender equity programs, or if there is anything like that at the union level? That's question number one. And if I can add another one, which has to do also with the role of unions. Well, I'm natural from Argentina, and I have worked in a number of initiatives with cooperatives, and in a context of neoliberal economy, as is the case of Filipinas at the moment, and we were discussing about the type of administration you are facing at the moment, which is a very radical one. Is there space for a cooperative, for cooperatives to grow? Because my question is that in many cases where cooperativism was emerging in my country, they were not so much consolidated, not so much because of the union strategy, but because the society was not actually pushing or supporting or having a space for that. What's the case for the Jeepney process of initiating cooperatives? Was the unionists developing a training approach, or even a moralizing strategy I mean, this is very much deals with feelings. Do people want to be part of a cooperative? Are cooperatives working as such, or is this something probably pretty much in process? But I would like you to tell us a bit more on that aspect. Thank you so much.
And nice, this seems to be a similar question with the Kevins from Mauritius in the chat. Really, I think that's where it seems to be the interest. Like, how do you convince people to be part of these cooperatives? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Nicolas, for that question. Very important point. Well, as the case study have mentioned, transportation in the Philippines is a very male-dominated work, especially in the jeepney transportation program. I haven't seen one as a jeepney driver when I was a kid riding on it. And most of the time, our members who are part of NCTU in the specific union are operators rather than drivers. But through cooperatives, we managed to make sure that We hire women in the administrative part of the work of the cooperatives. Yes, you may say that it's also an extension of women's work in the at home, because they are good as being secretary, or they are good in making sure that everyone is organized. But the union feels that if there's a space for women to be part of the transportation system, and that jobs or positions are the openings, then we welcome more women to be part of the work. So right now, we haven't have yet women drivers, but we welcome them if they want to be trained at it. But here's the thing. Even though most of the women workers right now who are our members are in the administration unit, they take on the leadership role in the cooperatives, because they are the one who's trained in fleet management, in negotiation. So you can say that this is really a good opportunity for women to be exposed on the transportation system. Not enough in terms of pushing for equality. We need to do more. We need to make sure that we are raising their critical consciousness as real as possible when it comes to gender sensitivity, especially that it's a male-dominated area, and they should not be just submissive to men who are drivers and operators as well. So we are also giving them education in terms of gender sensitivity training and leadership. And everyone in terms of our leadership program is encouraged to be part of it. But the good thing as well is that we have 2 or 3 organizers who are women in the transportation industry, and I'm very proud of that. Because it also contributes to influence other women that they can do it and they can be part of it. So that's my answer to that first point. On the second point, in terms of cooperativism in the country, despite of the shrinking democratic spaces during Duterte's administration, I will always say that it will be a question of to the movement and to the unions work and initiative on how are we going to fight back. And I will always keep on mentioning raising critical consciousness, which is GLU's goal for everyone. Of course, in when we started the campaign, it's not easy. Just concept of just transition, it's not easy to understand. It's like not imaginable. But when they feel the heat of air pollution, they feel different changes in our weather, they know that they contribute to the effects of climate crisis. And that's one of the big elements where we had an opportunity to really bring in the imagination of our members to this concept of just transition. But it will only be just if the workers will keep on working while transition to better air. If they contribute to less polluting air that their engines are receiving. So right now, the cooperative in the Philippines is very challenging in a sense, because private institutions even use the idea of co-op to discourage workers from joining unions because cooperatives are also used by private individuals and companies to create manning agencies. Even though the workers are not earning on it, they are called cooperatives so that one, they will not be encouraged to be part of the union, and two, the cooperatives idea of capitalism and profit will be embedded to them, but that profit will just only go to a few who thought of that name called cooperative. So there are still problems in the system. But I must say, to the point I raised a while ago, that it's about the union's strategy on how they will make sure that despite of the shrinking imagination of the people in the government and the deepening democracy, how do they maximize that space to push for the alternative they are pushing? And right now, since we are operating in a modernization, we are pushing the government to subsidize the other needs of the workers who have transition, like having a service contracting, for example. That subsidy should go through the cooperatives so that the cooperatives will be empowered and that the drivers and operators will see that because of the cooperatives, the governments are listening to their demands. So that's what we are doing on it.
Thanks very much. Nice. There is another question by Kevin again about, especially on the question of women. No, sorry, from Agnes, sorry. About the specific challenges that women are facing in terms of violence and harassment. If you want to expand on that, but also if you can expand on the point that you were making earlier, I think it's very important in this case that the union resisted to say, we want to have a just transition, but it has to be managed by us. So you don't just phase out the jeepneys immediately, causing, we know many people really depend on the jeepneys for survival. But on the other hand, for everyone that has been in the Philippines, and of course for all the Filipinos here, we know what the hell the traffic in the Philippines is, and that it cannot be really resolved just by more jeepneys in the streets. So is there any attempt by the union to also articulate a different vision of public transport, in particular regarding expansion of railways? I mean, for decades they've been talking about railways, and then it's so behind. So just what's kind of the broader vision of the union when it comes to how the public transport in the country should be organized? So
Yeah.
two questions really developing on both points that you made earlier.
Very important point, Sister Elvira, and very important concerns in the chat. Our union in general, since the Philippines is a car-centric area, are visioning that one of the key to the development of our country and in all other countries is public transportation. More trains and more massive public transportation. Right now, I will be very frank. Our union in the National Confederation of Transport Workers is also supporting Centro's position, but haven't had yet in that kind of level of discussion, given the challenges they are facing after they're facing after the consolidation. But it is also a reminder, not just to our public transport workers union, but also to our unions in the manufacturing of cars. Because it's like a big challenge. If you are pushing for it, they will think that, but how will be our livelihood? What we produce are cars for individuals or for families, and not for the general public. So those are like the questions we are facing right now in terms of the future of public transportation here in the Philippines. But we are leveled off that the best way for us to have good public transportation is to have a massive investment on it that can produce train routes and more big buses if you like. And here even our buses are more on operated by private companies and not by not by our own government. So that's very problematic. In relation to the question of Sister Agnes about transportation as male dominated, of course, there are stories of sexual harassments and abuses, and that's why one of the key education program of our National Confederation of Transport Workers Union is having gender sensitivity training. In fact, they were the only union where the Commission on Human Rights in the Philippines partnered with in relation to their Safe Spaces Act, because in the Philippines, jeepneys used to have this signs or cards where they put the name of the route where are you going. If Sister Elvira in the Philippines have been here, she will know UP Ikot is the sign. And what the CHR did together with our union is to produce that kinds of signs, but in the aspect on how people should respect women, for example, and how they will not body shame, etc., etc., in our own languages. And they use that kind of signage in almost all our union members units. So it's also a good opportunity to raise awareness and hopefully to that critical consciousness that that we want. But I can imagine it's not, we are for zero tolerance of violence and harassment. But our preventive measure is to make sure that all our unions have committee on decorum and investigation. And we are now, currently our union prioritized to have massive information dissemination of the current law about Safe Spaces Act, which includes sexual harassment in the streets and public utility jeepneys and vans.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we've had Michael and Erica. So shall we first get Michael's question, and then we see, we can judge whether we can take a second, okay? Michael, over.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Elvira. Thank you to everyone. The case in Philippines is very interesting for us, saying that I'm from Cote d'Ivoire, and in Cote d'Ivoire, government has imposed a ban on the import of vehicles older than 5 years. And this really is a problem for people in public transport. But my concern for her is that the union take into account in the struggle the drivers who work with digital platform like Uber and Yango, because we know that there is a real problem of decent work with these kinds of workers. So this is my concern. Thank you.
So, Brother Michael, we haven't organized yet Grab drivers and Uber drivers who are using cars. But since 2021, we've started organizing Grab delivery workers, especially in the food industry. And right now, we managed to build the National Union of Riders. And hopefully, it's not easy, but it will help boost those workers in the platform industry. But you've mentioned also importation, and it's also good to raise because that's one of our lobbying point in the government, because in relation to job generation, if the country can manufacture the needed units to build here in the Philippines to the modernized jeep programs like electric utility jeepneys, then it will create more jobs to us. Because right now, aside from the aspect of importation of new units, our question about the current just transition program is, yes, some of our unions have already shifted to electric units, but where do they get their energy? So we need to make sure that the energy they are using are also from renewable energy. But that's the current challenge right now. So that's the current negotiation and dialogues of our unions together to make sure that it's not just transition, but it's a real just transition program from the sources of energy that their electric utility vehicles are using.
Thank you very much. Erica, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to build on the question Adira had asked before. That was the question I was also going to ask, but then Adira went. I was like, oh yeah, that was the one. Yeah, so just building on that question, if the vision for a just transition in a climate just future would be, say, public transport that likes rail systems, right? What are your thoughts on reskilling workers? Is it the role of the governments and reskilling workers so that they'd be able to build a workforce for rail systems? And then just thinking about it, that is one. There's reskilling workers, and then the other thing is also, do you have any efforts to kind of build worker intelligence, kind of organizing workers to understand why we need public services, but also pushing back against privatization, and also to be able to envision this future of its public services, its rail system, as opposed to car-centric ways of travel? Because I'm also thinking, as I am a climate justice organizer, so I come from a climate justice background, and I'm just thinking of it in the context of the solution is not moving also from cars powered or vehicles powered by fossil fuels to renewable energy cars, because even in the end, all the minerals cannot be able, the critical minerals, the lithium, nickel, and whatnot, are not able to power the just transition with the same model of consumption. Like all the cars now shift to we have to reduce our consumption, and that includes some of the cars and whatnot, into more public transport, rail systems, and whatnot, so that you reduce the strain on this, on the demand for these minerals, right? So I'm just thinking, what is the thoughts on this? Have you guys been able to develop a strong critique also on renewable energy powered jeepneys?
Yeah, thank you, Erica. Right now, for our union in NCTU, what they are pushing is long-term funding for establishing solar-powered charging station for eco public utility vehicles, starting with pilot areas and key cities. And as always, the process must be based on the principles of just transition, as we mentioned, and the transport workers must be at the center of the formulation and implementation of the public utility vehicle modernization program. Right now, in terms of our basic courses, we make sure and we emphasize that we are critical on privatization. But like what I said, I should be honest, our union in the transportation program haven't reached the discussion of how are we going to contribute in building more railways, because in the long term, it will also lead to creating more jobs. We haven't have gone through far from our current discussion right now in relation to the modernization program. But I am very sure that the government and even the unions have the role to play in making sure that workers are ready to be trained again if there will be new jobs available in the transportation industry. And that alternative should be owned also by the workers and discussed by the unions. I also want to be in that vision already, because vision is critical for us. But right now, hopefully, the current struggle where they are in will contribute to that current discussion. And Centro, as a national labor center, will also help provide that level of discussion, so we can develop that long-term vision for public transportation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice. While we're waiting for perhaps another question, can you also expand a bit on the relationship of NTUC of the union and of Centre in general with environmental movements? I mean, in another course that we had on the just and green labor's ecological question, one of the issues that was identified was that sometimes these environmental movements are kind of class blind. So they would go for saying, or shut down everything now, without thinking about the livelihoods of people and what should happen to the people that are affected by these polluting industries. So what is, in your experience, what's been that relationship, and how important it has been to have this almost two-way education of both the environmental movement and the labor movement?
Yeah. It's very important in our work, and it's very important to see that there should be continuous discussion about what we do, what's our interest, what's at stake. Like for example, Erica is a climate justice organizer, and not all our members, for example, are saying that, oh, climate concerns or climate crisis is our priorities. It always goes down to the bread and butter issues of the workers. When I said bread and butter, it will be their income, their wages, the things they are feeling. They will just think of climate as a problem if they are feeling the weather now that we are under now it's raining in the Philippines, but we've been experiencing intense heat, for example. So they are saying, we are really on a climate crisis. And every time workers have that feeling, the unions maximize it for different level of discussion. And the best way to discuss that with us is those with expertise. And we believe the environmental groups have expertise on it. That's why I'm very proud that our union, for example, is our strategy is called social movement unionism. That it's very important to work in the advantage of the worker to different groups of people, of unions, of developmental workers, because it will always help the interest of the workers. And I have this kind of discussion in the mining sector, for example, not yet on the transport industry. We work closely with the alliance called Alianza Tigil Mina, or Stop the Alliance to Stop the Mining. But we have workers who are unionized in the mining sector. And one of the very honest and straightforward response of our union is that actually I'm against mining, because I already see how harmful it is to the environment, even though they are the one providing the economic interest of our community. But in this fight right now, you cannot say no to mining in this community, because they will get angry to the alliance, because the community will say it's like their god, because it provides all the public services they need, from schools to roads to buses. Imagine the mining company provides an house-to-house bus from school to their home individually. So that's what they are selling to the community, how good they are to the community without like seeing the harm it gives to the community eventually. But our union said we are all for it, but it also means we need to transition to a work to 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 a work where people will make sure still gets their income. How are we going to shift is another question, if that's the only available industry where people are working. Because even our unions told them that, because to be honest, being in this work for more than 10 years, there's no responsible mining at all. It came from the mouth of our union president. But our current problem is that if we say it now, but the community is not with us, and there's no alternative of work for the workers and the community living here, it will also be a problem. But that will be a challenge for the union to provide that alternative, but also an opportunity for the union to raise it to the government. But we need to have a critical research and study to propose that kind of alternative and the effects of that mining company to the community and area. But honest dialogue between the environmental groups and the unions is critical in our work, because it's easy to say we can support your work, but if it's not actually done at all, then it will be a problem. Now we are testing one of our community areas in Cebu to make sure that in all the levels of our education program, there are discussion on the effects of climate in relation to the work. So our idea is to develop a political climate activist and unionist, but will inform you. Maybe it can be a next case study soon if we manage to have victory in this kind of work that we are doing. But we're starting with the education work for our trade unions.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring. Thanks a lot. Any final questions? We have a couple of minutes. I meant by no way to discourage our Filipino comrades to make questions. It was just we want to give a bit of space to people that were not from the Philippines to start the conversation. But we are reaching the end. Any final questions and comments, including by the comrades in the Philippines? And I know, Benji, you had a question that you had put in the questions when you registered, and I wonder whether you still want to put that question or whether
Do you want me to ask that question?
it's up to you, or if you have any other question that you think is relevant for the discussion.
Or if he had another responses to my responses, being here.
Yeah, that too.
No, because no, my question was I wanted to ask Nice about some key lessons of NCTU's struggle. The reason I wanted to ask that is it's because I know it's a difficult one, because NCTU was fighting for just transition within a modernization program that was by design is discriminatory. So I could understand how difficult that is. So any like key lessons on your part on what were the right things done, what could have been done better or in another way, looking back at the years long struggle of NCTU?
Yeah. In terms of our realization on the right things they've done, I commend NCTU for pushing the 2017 strike that really paralyzed and pushed the government to have a 5-year moratorium so that workers have the capacity to understand how they will consolidate among themselves and study. And they take the challenge on taking on or drafting their own education module about fleet management because they believe that if they are decided to shift to cooperatives, then leaders should be trained on how to manage a co-op, and it's very different from operator and boundary system. Their internal democracy as a union to have a continuous discussion is the key, and their political decision that those who will remain are those who are willing to commit, not just in terms of the idea, but also in terms of finances. And that would mean their union dues. So those are some of the elements I believe that contributed them, aside for their sustained coalition efforts, because this is not just a victory of NCTU per se, but a victory of many groups who work together, because NCTU became part of Move as One coalition that helps them imagine, for example, service contracting and how government can also subsidize their needs, especially during the pandemic. There are limited slots for people to sit in the jeepney, and we managed to get that by law, so they managed to raise the funds, but implementation of that is another question. But what are the key lessons? While they managed to build a coalition, it's still a struggle of consistent dialogue and discussion with other groups to have leveling off. For me, even though you have different political tendencies and ideologies, if the interest, if you are having one interest and a common goal together, then there's a really need for a deeper discussion. And that is not easy for NCTU and maybe to other groups as well, to how to convey the current situation to the public. For example, no to jeepney phase out is more easy than to say just transition for all. But how the public understand just transition is another question. But three, if workers are more consolidated across different unions, different federation of transport workers, we can put more pressure on the government to make sure that the modernization program they are pushing will really benefit the workers and not for the interest of the private sector. And finally, I realized in this kind of discussion and exchange I'm learning from the team is that there's a critical need for the workers, our union in NCTU, to make sure that there is discussion about the vision and future of public transportation and not just the current local struggles that they're in. But I believe that if they manage to pass through this current struggle, they can envision a bigger problem that they can solve together. But that sustained discussion of vision and how to do it is also a key lesson in this kind of system that we are in this modernization program.
Well, thank you very much. Nice, very, very inspiring case. We're really happy that you made it to join us, even if it's so late. Lots of learnings there, also for other countries. Thanks again for staying so late with us. Thanks everyone for the great questions.